inside the chapter, it says the book of Habakkuk reads of both a prophecy and a heated conversation between God and the prophet. Habakkuk begins the conversation with a complaint. And that's why when people say, oh, you can't go to God, you can go to God with anything. It's on your heart, it's on your mind, it's troubling you. Why so-and-so did what they did. How can I fix this? Whatever the situation, you can go to God and talk to him because he made you. Anyway, Habakkuk begins the conversation with a complaint against God. For the prophet, God seemingly cannot or will not hear his people's cry for help and refuse to save them from the violence and wrongdoing and injustice of their land. God answers Habakkuk's complaint by promising to do something unthinkable. That's when in the beginning he says, write the vision. And he tells him to make it plain. And he says, I'm about to do something that you haven't seen before in your time. Yes, Pastor.
I was just getting ready to go back there because in that very first chapter 1, verse 1 and verse 2, said the bird which Habakkuk, the prophet, did see. He asked God, how long?
Mm-hmm.
How long? How long shall you let me see all this and you ain't do nothing about it? And then it's how long shall I cry and thou will not hear them? Hear evil crying out unto you. A violence and thou will not save. Why dost thou show me iniquity and cause me to behold grievous for spoil and for violence? And before me, and there are that ride up in strife and contentment. You know what God said, John?
What did he say, Pastor?
Keep watching. I'm gonna do something of your day, gonna blow your mind.
You ever feel that way personally?
Yes. I think this country right now is in that what I'm about to talk about. God said keep watching.
Yes.
Now he allowed the violent men to come in. God allowed it. So you can see it. Now you see it. Now God told about keep watching. And all you got to do is keep watching. Don't stop complaining about it, but just keep watching. Keep watching God. Because God says how he looks low, he sees all and he knows all. And in everything is in God's time. Everything is in God's time.
Do we feel that way when we're going through situations and things are turned upside down and things are not happening? I know I had to remind myself, you know, God, I know you see everything that's going on. So at this point, I just had to make up my mind again and reaffirm, I'm just going to trust you through this situation. Am I the only one that feels that way?
That's what Habakkuk is right now.
Yeah.
That's what Habakkuk
You look at, sorry.
No. You finished, Pastor?
Yes.
Okay.
We look at things and we see coming to ourselves.
Mhm.
Yeah. But this is one of the ones that, in answer to Habakkuk's question, he says, Habakkuk said, how long? He said, my ways, your ways are not my ways.
Yes.
My thoughts are your thoughts.
Mhm.
That's the absolute answer right there. But sometimes we continue to go,
Yes.
try to figure it out, and we mess up.
Yes, we do.
But if you go back to what he just read, he just said, my way, my way, and I said, your thoughts are not my thoughts. So, and he just settled that.
I think we are the when, why, and how people. You know, when is it going to happen? How? Do you have a timing on it? Because I'm getting tired of waiting. Nobody else feel that way?
Have you ever noticed that when you got to that point, and I'm sure we all got to the point, it's not until you literally settle into the fact that this is what it is, but not so much just like, going with the flow, but giving it to what it is that God is doing. Paul, the Apostle Paul said in every state, he said, I've learned to abound and I've learned to be abased. But whatever state I'm in, I've learned to be content.
Yes.
But you ain't got no other choice, because at this point, like the fight you done fought, you tired, you exhausted, and then you just give in, and it seems like that's when the break comes, and then God answers, and then you see what it was all about. But as far as you struggling and losing sleep and crying and worrying, trying to figure it out, it just seems like it makes things that much more
It
long.
does.
But then when you find yourself, okay, you know what, God, I'm just going to trust you. And
I used to sing this song long time. If Job waited on the Lord, why can't I? And I used to say to myself when I sang that, though, Job didn't wait on God. To me, right? And Job didn't wait on God. He had to stay there. We get in situations where we can't move and shake. We can't break it apart. We can't fix it. Because if we could fix it, and I've been in that situation, if I could fix it, I'd fix it. Get it right and move on. Don't nobody need to know what happened with situations. And I always felt that he had to be there because he was going. If anybody else disagree with me, you're welcome to say something. He had to stay there. He wasn't healed until God healed him. And even when he began to question God, I believe it started in the 38th chapter, he began to question God. And I mean, God then at that particular point began to deal with him. I mean, he dealt with that joker. And so he had to wait on God. So he wasn't, to me, he wasn't patient.
It's one thing we got to keep in mind.
Mhm.
You read that fourth chapter, that fourth verse and first chapter of the King. He said, the Lord's what?
I don't know where you're reading at.
First
chapter.
First verse. And the first chapter and the first verse.
Okay.
He said the Lord's crooked and it is perverted.
The law.
The law, yeah.
Yeah.
And so all these things that the prophets try to do now, he tell you they crooked and they're perverted. But he said keep watching.
Yeah.
Just keep watching.
I believe.
And that's why we need not worry about what's going on.
Well, you know what, Pastor, and you can comment. I got kind of tickled because a lot of these people that he's messing with put him in office. And he is, he's doing some things. And in my mind, I remind myself, God is still in control.
But let me say this to you. You keep in mind, God brought Israel out of Egypt.
Yes.
Part the Red Sea, walked across on dry land. They're the 40 years in the wilderness. They were one pair of shoes, and their clothes never wore out. He fed them bread from heaven, and then after they cried for meat, he gave them meat. Then he fought for them. And when they got comfortable. And then they asked Samuel, said, Samuel, we want us a king like every other nation. And Samuel took it to God. He said, God, they're asking for a king. One they can see, wouldn't go fight. He said, God said, I've done all that for them. But since this is what they're asking for, I'm going to give it to them, but they don't need it, but I'm going to give it to them. And I'm going to tell you what kind of king he's going to be.
And when he did that,
Mm-hmm.
he gave them the permissive will, not the perfect will for God that he wants. So when we read in this background coming up, it says the prophet questioned the silence of God. I had to pause right there because we do. We question God's silence. God, do you not hear or see what I'm going through? Now take me down, Sister Evangelist April, where it says, in depth, the power of the people. And we're going to go ahead and just get to the conclusion of this.
In depth. Oh, the power of the people. Habakkuk 2:6. It says, in response to Habakkuk's second complaint of questioning God's silence in the face of violence and injustice, and what felt like an unwillingness of God to intervene on behalf of his people, God describes the enemy as puffed up, not upright in his desires, betrayed by wine, arrogant, restless, and greedy. That sounds familiar. Habakkuk 2:4-5. And chronicles how the enemy has prioritized taking captive the people of all nations. And that's what's happening. However, God then provides Habakkuk with a unique prophecy declaring that at some point, those same people whom the enemy captured will overcome the enemy, taunting him and speaking unavoidable truths of the enemy's demise. Find that in verse 6. This small portion of the text is packed with some big implications, namely, the beginning of the work of restoration is when God's oppressed people tap into their own power to use their voices to speak to and against the injustices that they have witnessed. As in the day of Habakkuk, today God's people have the power and obligation to speak to people, policies, and systems that are unjust and oppressive. This power is given to us like a spark plug for the change that God will bring about in his perfect time, just like the pastor was just saying. So here's the query. It says, what injustices and oppression have you seen or experienced that God may be calling you to speak against?
Now, you don't really have to comment on that question because we see a lot of stuff going on. I mean, even in our time, a lot of stuff happening. And I don't know how many of you saw. I don't know if I was the only one that saw it. Trump actually had their first meeting. Anybody see that?
Yeah, man.
And he had somebody praying. Did y'all see that?
Oh,
Not the argument.
What are you talking about? He's not talking about his inauguration.
No. This was their first meeting. I forget what they called it. First getting together, first time they met.
There's something.
Right, and Trump says, I would like to open, I want this meeting open with prayer.
Oh, no, I see that.
Y'all didn't see that. I know y'all, he had not only did he open with prayer, he had a black guy get up there and open the prayer. I was like, in my mind, just having fun. Is he saying now, what's going on there? So I got kind of tickled, that's all. I'm surprised nobody, I always see that stuff.
Let me say this to you.
Real quick, because I want to go. No, I said I want to go
The
into
man of God
Mhm.
would not do what this man is doing.
Mhm.
So now, what this man is doing now is being used by the devil.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, the devil can make you do a lot of things. And now God has a way of trying to get your attention,
Yes.
trying to get you in the place where he has you to be. Now, because yesterday, I had a lot of stuff in the car I wanted to give out. And a lady called me because I went home and I was getting ready to take care of my business at home. She called me, Pastor. She said, now you told me if I called you, you got some stuff. I'm here. I said, well, I tell you what I do. I'm on my way. And when I got there, another lady came up. And boy, she started raising all kinds of things. This lady right now, this lady right now, this lady did this, this lady did this. And if it hadn't been for that lady, I wouldn't have been over it. See where I'm coming from? God used that lady. That lady was a blessing out because I wasn't coming out yesterday afternoon. But he used that lady to call me, and I met her over there. And because I met her over there, this lady come up and she told me, I did this for if you do something for somebody, if you don't do it from your heart, you might have well not even did. And she blessed the lady. The lady didn't say one word to her. And if I see that lady again, I'm gonna tell her, I'm gonna say, if it hadn't been for that lady, that you blessed out, you wouldn't have got the stuff you got yesterday.
We never know. Gotta be careful with that.
God used you. And he used that lady to get me over there for all of them could ask some food yesterday.
Amen.
But it's also the same thing, just like you feel the Pope, and you're, definitely saved. But that a lot of that stuff is like trickery, and just like you were saying, once you heard that hurt, and especially he uses black folk because he knows, that spiritual side. A lot of black folk, which is spiritual. You have to lean on board in order to get people who are like gullible when they see that kind of stuff. Just like when he stood up in his first term, he stood in front of that same Episcopal Methodist, I believe it was, church, and he held the Bible upside down. It was that same church where they had the meeting when he first got inaugurated with Minister Marion, I believe her name was, where she was pleading with him to have mercy on God's people. That was that same church. So a lot of the stuff that he does in the name of the Lord, people are deceived because he does something like he has somebody to say a prayer or present a Bible that he don't even know anything about. He called 1 Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, like it's all a ploy. Like, but there are people that don't even know the Lord and they fall for that. So you can see how, when you ask, wow, is he saved now? There are people that are deceived. They're like,
But
so
you know what? Let me just say this. We always say, oh, are they saved? Understand that saved means so many different things.
Yes, it can.
So, just be mindful of that. But there is such a thing as where Pastor talks about the gift of discerning. There's also where we have, even when you sit in services, you can interpret a service. That's a blessing too. That's a gift too, where a person can sit in a service and they can interpret the move or the flow of the service. And you recognize, so when things start happening, a person that's, that ain't good. That's breathing the spirit right there. I just received the text. Here it is. It says the Americans witnessed something extraordinary. Trump's first cabinet meeting begins with prayer. Now, so when you get a chance, look at it. I mean, the brother prayed too. Don't get me wrong. He even said, I think he said, you prayed good or something like that. Now, wait a minute, Pastor. Understand. You got to interpret those things.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
Mm.
Then you want to know, is this real? So when you hold that, let's go on. I want to get through this, and then I'm going to let everybody get their comment. Verse number 2. Somebody read number 2. Destroyed by their own devices.
Okay, and that's verse 6 through 8. It says, next, God reveals at least 3 warnings or woe statements that the people would speak against the enemy. What is interesting about these statements is that in each scenario, the enemy is destroyed utilizing the same methods that they used against God's people. God reveals that those who gain their wealth by stealing and extorting God's people will come to ruin at the hands of their creditors. Verse 6 through 7. God declares that those who plunder many nations will eventually be plundered by the nations that remain. Verse 8. Finally, God says that those who try to escape ruin by ruining others will be ruined during the end. You'll find that in verse 9 and 11, and 9 and 10. These 3 woe statements illustrate the great irony of injustice. Eventually, the very devices one uses to destroy others will be the devices of one's own demise. This lesson foreshadows the lesson Jesus seeks to teach Peter. Quote, all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Matthew 26:52. Those who live by the spirit of sword will die by the sword. It says, can you recall a time when the methods someone used to destroy others were eventually used to destroy them?
Take me to 3. Go ahead.
And then 3 says, God will get the glory. Verse 12 through 14, you'll find it. The final statement of the text contains the good news. And the final woe statement of the text, God speaks directly to the violence and injustice that Habakkuk gave his initial complaint about. God declares that these efforts are ultimately futile as the Lord Almighty predetermines that the final glory would not be given to the work of the oppressors, but that the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord. Habakkuk 2 and 14. This text serves as a reminder to Habakkuk and to the reader today that injustice, violence, and oppression cannot win. In the end, God will get the glory. So here's the prompting. It says, can you name some instances where injustice was delayed but ultimately was achieved on a local, national, or global level?
I just wrote Jesus because all that he did for us, he was the ultimate sacrifice and did all that he was going to do for us. Local, national, global, spiritual, every level that there is, how he took upon him all of the sins of the world, the injustice and all of that. But God, I mean, with everything, God has the last say so, and not just with Habakkuk, but also with our lives. You know, every situation and circumstance. And the point that Pastor always brings out is that when Brother Job was walking to and fro, God recommended him. He said, have you considered my servant Job? In other words, he knew what Job was made of. He knows what we're made of. So the conclusion to the whole matter and every circumstances and everything that we go through is that God gets the glory. And the young man that was healed of his blindness, and the question that was asked, who sinned? Who did something wrong? Even with Job, and his began to say he didn't do anything wrong. It was his time, but it was for God's glory. And so many times when we get down in the valley, that is the time that we ought to seek God. Give me wisdom. How do I walk through this thing? You know, even when we look at the president, I often laugh. He messing with a lot of people that put him in there. I mean, he messing with a lot of folks. And I just watch. And we're seeing this thing happen. And not to get nervous or get afraid. Like the one lady said, you want to take my job. I may not have a job. I'm the one that supports my children. My husband ain't here.
But they ask for something. Now you got to keep in mind, God knows something you don't need, but you ask for it and he'll give it to you. No, you don't need it.
You know, Pastor, and I watch how God, where I am now, how God has set up things just right to take care of the situation that I'm into. And God will orchestrate those things. You got to trust him. I'm sorry, let me just let him in, Pastor.
Go ahead.
No,
Did I see anybody else's hand?
my wife and I were talking about this. She was talking about what Trump was doing, and how he was doing this and that, and stuff like that. Yeah. So I said, you know what? I ain't worried about that. We got to trust in God.
Yes.
What Trump is doing is setting all this stuff and getting the church folk off of their mind about serving God and worrying about what he doing. You worry about what he doing, you're not trusting God. You see what I'm saying? So the point is, he cannot get over God no matter what he does.
Mm-hmm.
He gonna take care of us no matter what happens.
Yes.
And I said, the people that put him in there, Trump gonna mess with their money, and they ain't gonna really want him now.
And the enemy using, because he's trying also in a spiritual place. That's why I said those who can interpret, those who have this gift of discernment, those that God used, better get it straight. Those who God uses in the area where you recognize stuff. Amen. And I have a person, I tell him, I said, you a father. You see this stuff. You can see where some of the younger people can't see. Just the spirit that is on this person. You can see stuff. Other folks can't see it. And so you gotta watch. That's why the Bible says watch as well as pray. Even some folk like me that might be naive in certain areas, I'm going to watch and I'm going to pray and I'm asking God to teach.
Let me say this to you.
And then you can have some.
Sometimes the devil is sly, slimy, and he's slick. Jesus, he comes to rob, steal, and to destroy. That's what Jesus said. And see, you got to be careful when somebody gives you something. When they give you something, they want something back from you. Now, they ain't going to come out and say it directly. Because all them black guys, yeah, God gave me some money. And guess what? Them same people that he gave them couple of dollars to 2 or 3 years ago, now all their benefits, they will get it. All the welfare, all of the Social Security people that on Medicaid, he wants it back. He that's why he got what this guy named Musk. That's why Musk is in there. But guess what? Musk gonna reap this what he sowed, and so is Donald Trump. All you got to do, he told her, God told her about keep watching.
Amen.
Keep watching.
Okay, Pastor. I just want to say this: whoever wrote this book, or they didn't know, and God just
Gave it to us. The lessons are like right in the point.
exactly. That's what I was thinking. Evangelist April, and then you can comment and close us out.
I was just thinking what John was talking about, because we talk about it all the time, but I've always been, I'm not a real political person. Like I don't want to run for no office or anything, but I just have always been able to watch it, and I want to get in where I fit in.
Right.
I'm not one that I want to, see something going on in my community. I know who my rep is, my state rep is. I know who my state senator is. I know how to write letters. Like I'll do those things. That's just the way that I've always been. So of course, when we talk about it, and then of course John, he's spiritual, like God got it, and I do them, but I want
Amen.
John, because my prayer always is, God, what is it? What's my part? Because I'm not getting ready. I'm not going to complain. I'm not scared, because I also understand what the Bible has said, and I understand it has the final authority, and I know that these things must happen. I just like the ins and outs of it all, right? And so when it comes down to that, the point that I wanted to make, then I'll close out, is that's where I am. My question is, and I'm always asking God, I went to an event last week. My girlfriend had something at the YMCA, and I ended up getting she gave me 4 awards, like the state senators were there and everything, and I don't even know what I got those awards for. I accepted them. When I got my car, I'm like, I don't even know what I got these for, because I haven't done anything, but what can I do? So one of the girls, there's a newspaper that's in North Philadelphia, and it's been in North Philadelphia for over 30, 40 years. It's called The Scoop.
Okay.
And the woman, I can't think of the actual original writer, because he since passed away, but there's a sister who's now running the paper, and she's working with Dear Martin, to be on the radio. And so she was saying that, just getting people to write stories in a newspaper, and it's a free community newspaper. So, and so then that's when my antennas went up, because people will read and put something in the newspaper. And so there's some other things that on, the rise as far as just putting information in the newspaper about different things and different things. So that's the point that I'm trying to make. As far as All this political stuff, to me, is just interesting. I'm listening to it. I don't even look at the news. I'm listening to British news. I'm listening to the European news.
But let me just say before you close out, that really does work. I was in Delaware and I was trying to find something, I can't remember. And I look up on the billboard and I seen a person's name, some type of senator or something. I called her office. Do you know that people called me back, put me where I needed to be? And when they didn't hear from me, they called me back again to make sure I got it. I had a friend who went to see somebody. They wouldn't let my daughter in school. Her father went to the person who left
State rep. Yeah.
the baby went to school. You know, she got it.
Right. I'm telling you,
And that stuff really
it works.
does
It
work.
does work. And so I'm in. I want to know who's my state rep. I don't live in this community.
Yes.
I ain't been here a long time. I'll call my old state rep and he give me the information because I want to get plugged in. I want to, you know.
All right, pause right there. Brother Wick, did you have something you wanted to say? Because I really like to hear it. I know we run a little over time, but just about.
Yeah, but so that's all I wanted to say. It's just something. I cannot sit. I'm not getting ready to just sit and talk about it.
Yeah, we really need to know.
I want to get in where I fit in, Yeah. Without, I don't want to be elected to no office.
Okay, you can close this out.
Yeah. All right. Father, we just thank you. We thank you for this Sunday school lesson. We just thank you for every time we have an opportunity to gather around your word because we understand it is your word that we need and it is a firm foundation. We can't go wrong. We thank you for your guidance. We thank you because we know that your hand is on our life. And even with everything that we talked about, as far as the injustices that are going on in this world, but the title of our lesson today was justice. And we know that you are a just king, and we know that you understand all things and everything that's happening, you're going to work it out for our good. So with that, we give you thanks, we give you glory. We thank you for our Sunday school teacher. We ask that you would apply the word to our heart, that she may continue to grow in the grace and the knowledge of you, Jesus Christ. We thank you for our superintendent. We thank you. We ask that you would continue to increase her so that she can continue to push us forward in our learning. And we thank you for each and every one who's here as we hear your word and we dissect it and we're able to chew on it, place it in our hearts, allow us to grow. And most of all, God, help us to walk and operate in a state of justice. When we see something, say something. And more than that, help us to do something. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
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 Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, offering, please see Evangelist Teresa. You want to tell the call? You all got the text for Minister Shirley.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, it was Ramona.
Yes, a moment before we do it, of course. That means she had a great lesson at the end of her. That's a lot. The Lord is nigh. That means Pastor has no food, huh? Don't stop praying. Oh, wow. Hey. She was pointing at you when I was talking about. No, she was pointing at you. I said, don't leave unless she pointed at you like. So, So, Pastor, you got some food? Somebody dropped you off some food and stuff? Can't bring us nothing.